Hey guys, so the patient that I've chosen for my Reflective Day project is a patient that I had in the PICU. He was an 11-month-old male, and he came in because his parents during the night heard him having a hard time breathing, and they tried to help him by using a steam machine in his room, and it just didn't help. So they brought him into the emergency room, and they diagnosed him with acute respiratory failure and an upper respiratory infection with bronchiolitis. At this point in his care, it was more comfort care. He was working his way to being discharged, but he was still in the PICU. He had an NG tube and a nasal cannula, a high flow nasal cannula, but we were working him off of that. And by the end of the day that I was there, we were able to get him off of the nasal cannula, so he had a little bit more freedom. His parents were with him. They were very supportive through the whole hospital stay. They were always wanting to make sure that he was getting his medications on time and that he was okay. They wanted to make sure that they were doing everything that they could to provide care for him as well. When he was born, he was admitted to the NICU for a pneumothorax, and that is also part of the reason why I chose to do my project on him. And I also chose him because I always feel a connection with babies. I love caring for babies, no matter if they're in the hospital or outside of a hospital setting, and I just felt a connection with this patient. So to express the impact of the client that he had on me, I made a Tide baby blanket, and the front is just solid blue, and then the back side has different colors, and it can represent the two parents, the medical staff, and the patient. And then this is just plain blue for a baby blue. This is kind of a representation of the care that we were giving the baby and his needs. So I used a felt material because it's soft, and it's a comfort measure that was provided to the patient and his parents. Being in the hospital, especially for babies, is uncomfortable. He didn't feel good. He was having a hard time breathing. He was in a new environment, and all he needed was comfort. That was the most important thing, as in addition to getting better. His parents, they were away from work. They were worried about they were both teachers, so they both had to take off of work, and they were worried about their students and the substitute teachers that were taking their place. And this was their first child, and they just wanted to be there to comfort their child. And you could tell that they were trying to be strong, but still supportive through everything and not worry too much. They definitely put their trust into the medical providers. They couldn't comfort him as much as they wanted to because of the stuff, all the equipment that he was hooked up to, but you could still tell that they were there as much as they could to comfort him. I also did a blanket because baby blankets are always something that parents can hold on to, like as a memorable gift or something. And this is something that can represent their hospital stay with their child and helping him through his sickness. And as far as sensory development, that's one of the first things that babies develop when they're born. And this baby was breastfed, but during this time he wasn't able to be breastfed. And I just thought that a blanket would be a comfort tool for his sensory development as well. So as I said on this side, this can represent the parents and their protection and love for their child. And then the medical staff in the white, because we were all involved in protecting this child. The medical staff was protecting his body from developing more sickness, and we wanted to care for him. And then the patient was part of it because he was the patient. And then the parents also were being protected. We were trying to protect them, and they were trying to protect their child. And then the ties around the edges and in the center represent how the illness brought the family together. It made them stronger as a family unit. As a couple, the parents were experiencing this together. They had never experienced a child because this was their first child, especially being in the hospital. And as a family, it just represents the closeness that it brought them, not only as a couple, but as the three of them, and the parents loving on their child even more after his hospital stay. I truly believe that experiencing hardships together makes you stronger and this family was definitely stronger through this. The parents, they supported each other through their child being sick, and they were always there to comfort each other and give each other breaks. And again, blankets are things that can be kept from a childhood, and if this blanket were to be given to this child, it could be represented later on as his recovery from this illness, and also just a sign of resilience and strength, because the blanket is always going to stay together because of what they've been through. This client impacted me as a nurse because this patient was also in the NICU at one point when he was born for a pneumothorax, and I was also in the NICU for a little over 3 months because I was born premature. And I always have a connection with babies, but especially those that have been in the NICU or are in the NICU. And I just felt like I had a connection with this baby, and me being able to see his parents be cared for throughout this process was something that I thought about as how my family felt through the medical providers providing me care and them, because I was new to the world and wasn't able to fight for myself. I was relying on them, just as this baby was in the PICU and was relying on us to help him overcome his illness. It just makes me realize how important it is to care not only for your patient but for their families as well, and it reminds me of how my family might have felt during that time period as well. And just as I rely on pictures and my family to tell me about what happened when I was in the NICU, I think about this patient and how he will have that to rely on as well. And as far as an emotional attachment, sometimes all the patients have are the medical staff, and it just makes me think about how this patient had his family and the medical staff to rely on. And as I said, most of our care for this patient was comfort care and monitoring, but it's still just as important, and it's a reminder of a baby's resilience and strength with any illness, as well as their parents' strength and resilience. And that's another thing that this blanket can represent.